welcome back to another episode of Over the Glass. I am your host, Jay.
I'm other host, Nessa. Today we have Ashley. How do you pronounce your last name?
Mouzzon.
Mouzzon. Ashley Mouzzon.
Yes.
Okay. I guess we'll just go right ahead and get into it. If you could give your little introduction, how you got into hockey, how you identify. Go ahead.
Yeah, of course. So thanks again to you both for having me here. I appreciate you reaching out and letting me get on the show. So I identified she, her pronouns. Ashley Mouzzon. I am the owner of Ball Hockey Bootcamp, and I'm also an Army veteran and now an Army spouse. So I'm now a military wife, which is fun, has its own challenges. So that's awesome. I'm also a mom as well. I have a 5-year-old. He'll be 5 in about 2 weeks. So time has definitely flown since he's been around. But pretty much like just getting into hockey. I actually started playing hockey way back in like 2002, I think was when I first started playing. So started playing in Williamstown, New Jersey. That's originally where I'm from. And it was street hockey. So it was just an easy way to get involved in the sport. My parents were not, like, my dad was a sports person, but my mom was like not really into sports, and neither of them liked hockey. My dad was a runner, basketball player, and he knew football. That's all he knew. But when it came to hockey, they were just like, what? Why do you want to do hockey again? And my older brother was the same way. He only played basketball. He didn't know anything about hockey. And I just remember hearing some kids in my class, the Flyers have, I think they still have it, they have a mites program where they allow like the little ones to skate on the ice sometimes in between the periods. So when I saw that and I heard like there were some kids in my class that actually got to do that, I was like, well, I want to play. Like, I want to play hockey. It looks like fun. And so they signed me up for a street hockey program. I played for 2 years, but then I aged out. Like, street hockey is not what it is now, where you have adult leagues and things like that. So I aged out, and I begged and begged my parents till I was like, roller hockey, ice hockey, something. Like, I need to keep playing. And they were like, yeah, no, you're not going to, we're not going to do that, because a lot of traveling, obviously, is a lot of money, you know, a lot of big commitment to play. So I had to put it to bed like around, I think it was like 2004. I had to just completely stop, and I wasn't able to play anymore. So fast forward all the way to when I was in the Army. I joined the Army in 2014. So about 3 years in, right before I got out, we moved up to Alaska to PCS up there in Fairbanks, and I rediscovered women's hockey. So once I found out that they had an ice hockey league, I was like, oh, I'm there. I hadn't ice skated in a really long time. I rollerbladed a lot, so I was like, okay, it should be fine. Like, it'll be all right. And I was like, I don't care what happens, I'm going. Luckily, they had a really good, like, play it again sports up there. I found all my gear used, and I was like, we are ready to go. So after I had my son, it was like literally about maybe 8-9 months after having him, I got on the ice, and I was like, I'm never stopping again. Like, this is awesome. So once I rediscovered hockey, I just couldn't get enough of it. So once I played my first season in Alaska, I was like, I need to do this 24/7. So with my degree being in communications, I was like, well, let me start writing for sports. That was never my intention to be like a sports person, like writing and stuff like that. So once I discovered Women's Hockey Life, I actually worked with them for about 2 years, just doing articles, video content, social media, pretty much ran all of the social media content, YouTube, you name it, I did it. The podcast, got involved with a lot of players there, got to speak with a lot of incredible women in the sport, even got to attend a PWHPA game, so that was awesome, and be able to be on the ground doing media work for that was pretty cool. Sitting in a room with like Sarah Nurse, Kelsey Colzer was just like insane. I was just like, this cannot be real right now. Like, this is awesome. So it was fun to experience it as a media person, but also as a fan too. So it was nice seeing, like, you know, little girls being able to see these amazing women play and see them, you know, playing at a high level. And I was like, man, if I had this when I was little, there's no way I would have stopped playing. Like, I would have found a way earlier. But I said, you know what? I found it now, and this is what I'm doing. So once I discovered ball hockey, then, you know, rediscovered it as an adult, then I was like, I got to do something about this and get more kids in the game. And that's how Ball Hockey Boot Camp came to fruition down here in Columbia, South Carolina is where I'm at currently.
You talk about how you got reacquainted with the sport, despite how much you were interested in it, we all know it's very expensive, and especially in the US, unless you grow up in in the areas that are, it's almost like a little Canada, like a Minnesota, like a Boston, like the avenues where you can get in there and have more opportunity are rare. Did you migrate towards starting your foundation around ball hockey because of its accessibility?
Yes, yes, for sure.
Okay.
Because even as I mentioned, as an adult, I bought majority, except for my helmet, I brought majority of my gear used. I didn't pay for new gear
Mm-hmm.
because I was like, what if it doesn't work out? Like, what if it's not that as much fun as I think it's gonna be? So it's like, let me just get some used gear. And then when I went in the store, they had because in Alaska there's not a lot of sports stores. We didn't have a Dick's or anything like that, so you go in and play it again, and they have a lot of new equipment as well. And I started looking at some of the stuff, and I was like, man, like pants, like $100. I was like, a stick, $300. I was like, $300, like what? I was so just shocked. And even as an adult, I mean, I was working, my husband works. I was like, I mean, yeah, we could afford it, but geez, like this is a lot for kids and stuff. So, and what you'll see in street hockey or ball hockey, you know, the sticks are the same. It's not like we use different types of sticks. So I said, how can a kid afford this much on top of team fees, on top of other fees that they may need to play? So I said, well, if I want to get more kids involved, especially in an area where hockey is not that relevant yet, I said that I'm going to need to be able to allow it to be free. And ball hockey is the easiest way to do that, because they do have an ice hockey program here. But again, they don't have enough resources to just provide kids equipment. They can only allow them to kind of like try it on for the day, and then they're like, okay, well, you like it, all right, cool, join us next season type thing. But they don't have the means just yet to do that, to where they can give the kids equipment. So I said, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to not only ignite the passion of the sport for you, but I also want to find a way to give you gear, give you equipment if you choose to continue to play with me and like come out, or if you want to go to ice hockey, I want to find a way for you to play. So definitely for the accessibility of it, for sure.
I love that. Bless your heart. I I never grew up playing hockey. Like I got into hockey as an adult. Excuse me. But I can sort of relate to the fact of not being able to afford playing a sport, right? Because I come from a family of immigrant parents, and even, soccer is supposed to be one of the more cheaper sports you can get into, but they couldn't even afford it letting me play in a league like that. So, like, I could get my cleats, some socks, shin guards that other family members would help me, like, give me for Christmas or my birthday, but playing in an actual league was never an option for me, and I had to wait until I was in high school to be able to play on a team for real. So it's really nice to hearing like you want to make it accessible for kids who can't afford it. It's really not. It's heartwarming.
Oh, thank you. Yes, that is just my big. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what my parents remember at the time that I started playing, but I have no idea like how expensive the little gear that I did have on, how much that cost, and I feel like sometimes that is the reason why I didn't get to continue to play. Not only because of there just being lack of girls in the sport, and it was mainly boys at the time. You know, it's not like how it is now where you see girls programs or just more girls in general involved. I think there was only like maybe one of five of girls that played when I played. So that, and then also the cost of everything. Just when you look at the team fees, even as I see programs now, I'm like, that's expensive. Like I could not imagine paying up to $1,000 just for my kid to play like 8 games. Like that's crazy. I was like, $1,000 is out of control. And I was like, and given the fact that they grow so quickly, you have to continuously keep buying them gear that fits, like that makes it even more expensive at that point.
For sure.
Yeah, I can definitely talk about the cost aspect of it, because I definitely remember when I got into it as a teen, I started out with just, hockey classes just to, I've been skating all my life, but like roller to ice, there's a little bit of a difference. There's a little bit of like a learning curve to that. Yeah. But once I kind of, graduated from those, and the next step is obviously now you should like join a team and get into the game. At the time, I only had, the helmet, stick, like gloves, and like a pair of skates. And so, I mean, that already is going to run you at least like $500 just like right off the bat. But now you got to pay for all the other stuff on top of now you've got the hockey fees for the team. And I don't remember my mom ever telling me no, but I told myself no. That was one part of it, because I knew that I was a kid that really just loved everything. I wanted to do all the things. And at the time, I was a little concerned that I wasn't sure if I loved it enough. I think my uncertainty was because when I got into it, there wasn't a lot of diversity. And I remember during my first set of classes, they divided the rink between the figure skaters and the hockey skaters. And at the time, two of my friends actually joined in to like, oh, let's learn how to skate, but they wanted to do figure skating. So I spent a lot of time, we had the same time frames, but they were off on the other side of the rink. And I wasn't getting along with anybody. I wasn't having any connections with the boys over on my side. And so, I mean, it wasn't necessarily like a gender thing for me. It was just like I like skating, but my friends are over there.
Right.
But I don't want to do figure skating. So it was like a weird time for me where I was just like, I love skating. I love this concept of hockey, but I don't spend any time with my friends. And now if we're going to pay a whole bunch of dollars for me to continue doing this, I don't know if I'm going to end up loving it, to invest. But when I got back into hockey in my early 20s, it was, similar to like what you were saying, like you fell in love with it all over again. You wanted to do it like, this is definitely what I want to do like every day. And then now I'm making my own money, so if I invest in this, that's all on me. Right. I won't like feel bad if like my parents drop $1,000 and then like 3 months later I'm like, oh, I don't want to do it anymore. Like, so, but of course I haven't done that. But I can, on top of that, with the gear aspect of it, I had always wanted to play goalie, but that's a whole nother can of worms. That's those pads easily, like my pads over here, I got them, they were like 2 seasons ago. It was like the last model they had, and it was like a fat discount because they're like, we've got all this new equipment stuff, we're just trying to get rid of it. So I ended up getting mine for like around like $300, and they're like pretty good quality. So, I wasn't like digging at the bottom of the barrel, but you've got a kid that's coming up through the ranks, and especially in a situation if they want to be a goalie, that's a huge investment, and that's not something
plus they're growing,
right?
Yeah, that growth aspect is what kills it, honestly. Like just and then like you said, just getting goalie pads is like a whole different story too, because then at least I feel like sometimes there's also that learning curve as well, especially if your parents don't know like anything about hockey and they're just like, wait, you want to be a goalie? Like that's like a different type of skill set to have. Like that's it's very different trying to train a goalie than it is versus just get out there and skate, just go get the puck or whatever. It's like almost like you could treat it almost like soccer, like depending on the age level. You're just like, oh, just go chase the ball, like it's fine, like pass to your teammates, like it's fine. But like the goalie, you're just like, I mean, yeah, just keep your arms up kind of thing. Like, it's a lot harder to teach the kid, like, that aspect, especially if you don't, have the knowledge.
It's definitely more an investment than if you're a skater and there's more opportunities for you to, there's no difference necessarily as far as cost when it comes to forward versus defense. But you can't take most of that when you're trying to transition over to goaltender. And so what I wanted to come full circle around with was I ended up joining another league in this area that was exclusively like it's women and like welcome to non-binary and trans folks. Nice. And they have a program where I think it's twice a year they have a Give Hockey a Try Day, and we loan out gear. So people within the league when that time comes, they have people who sign up. And then specifically, if you're a goaltender, they like to kind of chat with you ahead of time so that they can link you up with somebody who's around like your same height and like weight, things like that, so that they can give you their set for the day. So you can try it on and you can like get on the ice and see if you like it. And then if you do decide to join the league, they also have donated equipment that then they will sell it to you for, I think it was like, for each piece, it's like $10.
That's not bad at all.
So when I started out, everything with the exception of, I think, 1 or 2 items I got from the secondhand donated pile. And then over the next like couple of years, I replaced it. So that way, you can get in there and they try to keep costs as low as possible. So that way you can just focus on having fun versus thinking like, how am I going to be able to afford all this stuff, and just being, really stressed and frustrated at that. So I guess moving forward, how did you kind of start the journey with starting Ball Hockey Boot Camp?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, like this wasn't my intention to start my own organization, but once I tried out for the U.S. Women's National Team back in 2021, I think it was, for ball hockey, and I was like, okay, like I want to keep playing this somehow, but the area that I live in just doesn't have hockey, and there's nothing nearby, so I said, well, I'll just figure it out as I go along. So I would just go to like, any tournament that I could go to, I would try to play that. And then I said, there has to be something else. Like I enjoy playing, but like I want to get more out of it somehow. And I used to coach track at the high school level. So I was like, I remember, having a lot of fun with the athletes, both boys and girls, just having a good time with them and, getting to see them do, and kind of like almost reliving my own experience. I used to run track in high school myself. So almost kind of reliving my own experience and seeing them like meet their goals and stuff, and knowing that I like helped them along the way. So I was like, okay, maybe I should get involved with kids somehow. But I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do that because there's no hockey down here, but it is what it is. So I was like, okay, well, USA Ball Hockey was having a coaching certification class coming up. And this was back in, I think it was the beginning of March. And I was like, okay, well, I'm already a member, so I'll just sign up. It's free to sign up if you're a member. And I was like, I'll just take the class, and it just is what it is. And then as I was waiting for the class to start, I was like, maybe I can start my own thing. I don't see a lot of other people trying to do too much in my specific area. So I was like, I'll figure it out. And I just took the class, and I was like, okay, the class was awesome. Like, I think I can do this, and then it took me a few months to really like commit to the idea. So I had the idea in my head, but then I kept thinking like, well, how's this going to work? I don't have enough money for this. How am I going to get kids to come out to anything that I even put on? Where am I going to do it? I said, this is not a good area to do things outside, especially once the summer happens, because right around the beginning of May, it's like 85 degrees and up outside. I was like, that's not going to be too much fun. So I was like, what, all the obstacles is all I saw at first. I was like, this is going to be a lot. I don't have anybody helping me do this. I don't have, like I said, any funds for this just yet. Like, how is this even going to happen? So I was like, you know what? All right, like whatever, I'll just start it. And I was like, okay, like, and I was thinking about names, and I was like, okay, well, I kind of want my, military experience to be kind of in the forefront. So that's where the boot camp aspect came by. So I figured, okay, well, let's not try to think about like starting a league or anything like that. Let's just start. I actually got inspired by this idea. There's a group called Brooklyn Bladers, and they're in Brooklyn, New York, and they started a free kind of like a kids clinic where they honestly were just playing as adults. They just would meet up with their friends and just play roller hockey outside on a tennis court. And people were like, oh, we never seen like people play roller hockey before, because it's New York and like no one plays roller hockey on the basketball courts out there. So I was like, yeah, I used to go to New York all the time, never saw that. And then they're like, yeah, we just did it with our friends. Like, it wasn't that big of a deal. And then we had some people asking us, oh, will you do this for kids? Will you teach my kid how to skate? Like, they don't know how to rollerblade. So they started this thing where every week they get the kids to come out for free. The kids all have their own gear, and they teach kids as if they were on the ice. They just teach them the same drills that they would do in ice hockey. So I was like, maybe that's what I should do. Just introduce the game to them, and then if they want to keep playing in a league, maybe I can help them get started in ice hockey or something like that. So I said, that's what I'll do. I was like, we'll do event-based stuff until I can gather enough kids that are interested to do a weekly thing, and then I'll find a spot somewhere to do it. And I was like, okay, now I got, like, it's shaping together, it's coming together. And then I was like, okay, but kids are great, but I also want to do something for women. I said, as far as I know, a lot of the tournaments that you see women playing in are all on the East Coast, but like Northeast. So above Virginia. And I was like, that's far. Like, if I got women involved down here, like, how could I convince them, hey, like, next month we got to go up to Pennsylvania to go play? Like, that's a lot. I was like, no, we need to do something else. So I said, maybe I can offer tournaments, but more down south. So the idea of doing tournaments was also came into play. And I said, okay, well, I think I can handle that. Like, I can handle tournaments. And that's where my idea for my tournament that's coming up in February came from, was just, seeing that not a lot of things happen below Virginia. So I was like, I need to bring something down here so I don't have to drive like 10 hours to get to it. So I came up with the idea of Ball on Broadway. So it's a women's only ball hockey tournament, which currently, and to my knowledge, does not exist anywhere else. Like, the other tournaments are women's and men's, and it's for like everyone, but I'm like, no, this is just for women. So it's going to be in Nashville in February, and I've been planning that for probably about 4 months now. So hopefully that happens. We need at least 10 teams to really get it to be up and running. Right now we have 7. So I was like, hopefully we can get there. But, just that's how everything started, kind of like it came together in kind of pieces. It wasn't just like, yeah, we're going to do this and I got my plan. Like, it was more like, all right, well, let me come up with a name first. All right, I got a name. Let me come up with, how can I get these events going? Then I was like, okay, so I found out how to do that. I actually ran my first kids clinic back in September. So we had about 15 kids registered and I had 6 show up, which wasn't horrible because I was like, well, if you think about it, there's no hockey here. So like, they don't even know what this is when they were walking into it. And it was great. Like, the kids gave it everything. For 6 kids to come out there and play for almost the entire 2 hours that we had the gym, they had a blast. And I was like, great. This just reinvigorated my hope that I can like continue this. So I have another one coming up in January. It'll be the same type of thing where kids, they'll come in. I have the sticks for them, the balls, the nets, everything. They just have to show up. And then I just teach them basics like stick handling, shooting, passing. I really try to get them to talk to each other because, it's kind of awkward. They didn't know each other. So really making sure they're talking and they're having a good time, doing relay races with them and stuff, and just teaching them the basics. And then when a scrimmage happens, they were all for it. Like, at that point, like, I convinced them they were hockey players and they just went at it. And I was like, this is awesome. So now I have to keep it up. So in January, it'll be a girls only one where for an hour, girls between the ages of 5 and 16 come out, and then I'll have women 17 plus come out for the second hour. And again, it's a free event, so I don't charge for my event. So people can just come and play and just have a good time.
Are you guys sponsored?
No, we're not. This is all my own funding, so no sponsorships just yet. Hopefully, but not yet.
Do you have any I guess long-term goals for ball hockey boot camp?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So some of my long-term goals just include eventually, when me and my husband take up space somewhere permanently and we're not just in an area for just a few years, I definitely want to start my own like kids league. I think that would be the ultimate goal, is to have a league so that kids can have a place to play. And then also opening up a scholarship fund so that kids that want to keep playing, or if they want to join our league, or if they don't want to play ball hockey anymore and they want to do ice hockey, roller hockey, being able to give them like an equipment scholarship, or hey, we'll cover your player fee this year. That I definitely want to get involved with that, because like I said, the cost is just astronomical. And I hate the fact that there are kids out there that probably are good and they want to play and they just can't because they can't afford it. And that just bothers me. So I'm just like, if I can get to a place where I can give out, equipment scholarships, just I'll cover your player fee, I'll get you, whatever you need, or if you're going to a showcase because you're trying to get noticed by scouts, let me help you cover your hotel, something like that. Along those lines, I would definitely like to be able to give out scholarships as well.
Yeah, I mean, every
That's
little
so
bit
nice.
helps.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
just such an expensive sport.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's just the old ultimate goal right now is just, getting to that league, getting those scholarships, and then in the meantime, until I get there, just continuously hosting these events for free or as low cost as possible. And eventually, I'm hoping within the next year or so while we're here that I can host a learn to play program. So it's not just like a one-time thing. It'll be like a weekly, hey, you come out for once a week, 6 weeks, and we'll go over different drills and things like that. And then if they, kids want to keep playing, I would, hopefully be able at that point to help them in terms of equipment scholarships. Like, hey, here's $400. You can use this to go to the store and buy what you need for ice hockey or roller hockey, whatever you're trying to do. So I'm hoping within the next year to kind of start that. But it's just, it's a little slow going right now, just given the fact that, like, I only have the capacity to do so many events at one time. So just making sure that, like, we're, being very strategic about where the events are, when they are, and, how it works out.
Because you said you're going to school right now and you have a job on that's your, like, primary. Is that right?
Yeah, so I have a full-time job. So I work from home, but I'm an admissions counselor for Southern New Hampshire University. So it's a typical like 9 to 5. And then also I already have 2 degrees. So I have a bachelor's and a master's, and I'm just doing a certificate program right now so that I could get an athletic administration certificate. So luckily through my school, like, that I work for, I don't have to pay for it, thank God. But it's just something that's helpful to me because there are things that I don't know about running like a business and things like that. And the classes so far have been like extremely helpful because it's very obviously geared towards sports. So it's been helpful in making sure that I'm like doing things the right way and everything like that.
Dang, killing it out here.
I'm stressed out, but we're good. We're getting there.
Well, I mean, we can relate in a few ways that when me and Nessa started the podcast, it's like what you said. We didn't really, we weren't heading in that direction. The direction wasn't for like long stretches of time. Like, yeah, let's start a podcast. It's just, we came about the idea because one thing led to another, and it was just like, well, we should just do a podcast, right? Like, these are intersecting issues that we both relate to, and after a certain point, when you don't see it, you're just like, well, I guess we're just gonna have to do it, because no one, because you're not seeing as much of it out in the world, and we spent a few months researching how to even do a podcast. We were looking at like, well, what platform should we use? Like, what kind of, we're looking at statistics and like all this stuff.
They were looking at statistics. I was like, just let me work on the logo. I'm good.
Yeah. And then we had to figure out what our like brand was going to look like. I mean, both me and Nessa have an art background. So like that was probably the easier part of it than like everything else. Everything else is like, where do we even begin, and yeah,
podcasts are a different beast. They're definitely, so I applaud you for that.
We applaud you for what you're doing. That is, our friend Nate was on the podcast a couple months back, and like, if you guys haven't linked up, you should totally link up, because maybe you can pass each other ideas, because he's in the same boat, and he started a roller hockey organization that it's less about the game, more so just giving people a space to learn how to even skate, learn how to even like handle a puck, and then just giving folks an area to just have fun.
But he's also providing equipment for kids as well.
Nice. Like, is he? So wait, you said Nate? Is that RGB Rollers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I haven't directly spoken with him before, but I've known about him for a while through Women's Hockey Life, and then Black Girl Hockey Club. He's involved with that too. So like that's how I found out about him, and I was like, that's awesome. If I could just get to that point where like if I just had a place to play like that like all the time, we'd be good to go. But I was like, oh my gosh, because like they do so much. Like all the kids that I see come out, I follow them on Instagram. So I was like, man, if I could just get to that point, that would be awesome.
We could link you guys together.
Yeah, you guys need to brainstorm together. You both are
Take on
I
the
mean,
South
he's
together.
always talking about how he's like, I have no time. I'm always at the rink. I'm always doing something. But it's wonderful to see, despite how busy, folks like yourself are, it's so rewarding from what I can see.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. That first kids event, because like I had planned that one out. It took me about like 2 months to like figure out where the gym is gonna be. Paying for the gym, making sure that I got my sticks on time. I actually got sticks donated for me, because I was gonna pay for them myself, but like the brand that I was going with, they were kind of dragging their feet on whether they were gonna provide them or not, and I was like, okay, well I gotta come up with something else. I can't have these kids come here and they don't have anything to play with. And I was like, all right, so I found out about this brand through somebody else that does like what you were saying. For adults, they do try hockey for free for women. And they were like, well, we've gotten people to donate gear, but there's this brand called Level the Playing Field, and they're more up north. So they more focus on Maryland and like Philadelphia area. And they have warehouses of gear for soccer, football, lacrosse, hockey. And I was like, oh, like, how do you get, she was like, that's where I got some of the stuff from. And I was like, oh, okay. So I had to apply and get approved for it. You have to do like an interview and all this stuff. And they were like, well, you're approved. You're approved for life. So once you're approved, you get to go to their warehouse and just pretty much go shopping for gear. Like, you literally just get to go and like pick out whatever you need. So I was like, is there like a limit on what you can get? And I remember talking to one of the representatives, and they were like, listen, we probably got like 100 hockey sticks back there. If you want all of them, you can take them all. I was like, what? I was like, what? I said, are you kidding? So I actually had my dad, because like obviously I'm not near Philadelphia. I had my dad go get all the stuff, and he's like calling me. He's like, "What do you need like for this stuff?" And I was like, "Okay, listen, I need like left-handed sticks. I need right-handed sticks. I need all this stuff." And I was like, "I need pennies. Like if you can get me like jerseys, like that would be great." And like he just like put all this stuff in there, and he was just like, "All right, well I got it at my house." And then like my husband drove up there, picked all the sticks up, brought it back. So it's just like hordes of sticks are like sitting in my garage. I have nets, balls, all that stuff. And then when I was able to, do that event in September and only 6 kids showed up, I was like, oh man, this kind of stinks. Like only 6 kids are here. But like once we got started and then seeing them actually like listen to what I was saying, and because the ages range from 5 to 13. So I was like, all right, like how am I gonna get all these kids to listen? They don't know each other. Like it's gonna be weird, and it just all worked out somehow. So at the end of it, I remember this one kid that I had. He was trying to score so bad, like the whole time we were playing. Like when we were just doing the little drills. Every time he would go to shoot on the open net, he would miss it, and then he would see somebody else make it, and he would just get so frustrated. And then at the end, when we did a scrimmage, he shot and scored. Like he shot like from a long place, and he just like let it go, and then just the ball just rolled right in the net, and he like jumped so high and was so excited, and I was like, that just made my day. Like I don't care if 2 kids are here, like that was the best moment ever. So after that event, like all like the stress of everything was like gone, because I was like, that was awesome. Like I don't care if it was just those kids there. It was so much fun. They made it a great time.
Oh, I love that story.
Yeah, same.
Switching gears here. So you mentioned being a journalist for like women's sports. How did that opportunity come about, really?
So
And
that
like,
was
what are your
really,
favorite parts about it?
yeah, that was interesting how that all came into play, to be honest. So when I was living in Alaska, I had just gotten out of the army, and I had just finished up my first degree. I had a bachelor's in English. So I was like, well, I want to get my master's. Like I want to write. So this is what I do. I like writing. So I need to figure out like how I can get in the master's program. But being in Alaska, there weren't that many, like, there's not a lot of colleges up there. So I was like, I have to find some place that's credible to where I can either get a master's in journalism or something close to it. So I had did some research, and I found Drexel University, which is actually, it's funny, it's based in Philly, which is, if I lived where I was from, it'd be like 15 minutes to go to the school. But
That's the one with the dragon, right?
yeah, with the dragon logo.
Yeah, I have a few friends that have gone to that university. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great experience, and it's so funny because I was like, I never had heard, like considered Drexel before until like this master's like program, and I was like, okay, well I'll apply for it and see what happens. It was the only online program that I found that aligned with what I was trying to do, so I was like, okay, I'll apply for that. I got in. and then I started working on it, and I was like, okay, well, how do I get like internships? Like, I don't live in an area where I can go. And this was really before, like, obviously remote stuff was even really possible. So I was like, how do I do this? So fast forward to when I lived in New Jersey while my husband was deployed. I was still in the middle of my master's like program. I was almost done. And this was right before COVID hit. And I was like, okay, well, this girl that I played hockey with, she somehow got an article on women's hockey life. Like somebody interviewed her and like she got it on there. And I was like, women's hockey life, what's that? And I was like, oh, let me look at it. And then I just like started like looking at everything. I was like, there's a women's pro league. I was like, why didn't I know about any of this? I was like, what the heck? So then I got like totally like ADD just like took over and just like hyper focused, like PHF, like Googling all this stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, how do I get to write for Women's Hockey Life? How does that happen? So they have a guest blog feature, and that's how I got started with them. Pretty much just guest blogging. I was like, whatever you need, like, I'll write it. I don't care. And I had never covered a hockey game ever. And I was like, okay, I'll figure it out. It's fine. And they needed writers for an upcoming PWHPA game. And I said, I don't even know what that is, but we're going to figure it out. I'm going to write about it. So anytime they posted about when they needed writers in their Facebook group, I just would jump on it, like, first go. I'd be like, me, I got it. And they'd be like, geez, okay, like, calm down. And then, so I wrote my first article, and I was like, okay, that wasn't horrible. But watching the game as a writer versus watching it as a fan is, like, two different things, because I wanted to make sure that everything that I was saying made sense and that I was following the stats right and making sure I got the players correct and everything like that. So it was a lot more of a focus like watch than I normally am used to. So I was like, okay, that was fun. Okay, I want to do that again. And then the opportunity for the PWHPA when they were doing a showcase in my hometown came up. And I remember emailing them and I said, hey, I live 15 minutes from here. I can go there and personally cover the game. And they said, oh, yeah, that would be great. If you want to cover it, that would be awesome. And I said, yeah, no problem. So as soon as they were getting ready to release the tickets and to be sold and stuff like that, I said, okay, I'm going to buy my ticket. It'll be fine. They actually emailed me and they said, oh, since you're going to be there, we can get you a media pass and then you won't need to pay. And I said, a media pass? What does that mean? I said, what is that? And they said, you can go there for free and you can get to interview the players. And I was like, I'm going to be interviewing the players? What? And I said, are you kidding? And I remember my mom saying like, oh, you're going to do all this for free? Like, you're going to put your weekend up? You're not getting paid? I said, I don't care. I'm getting paid an experience and I get to watch this game for free. I don't care about that at all. Like, that's not even, I don't even care. I'm not getting paid. So once I did that, I was so like ready to go, but I was also nervous. I remember planning out like outfits and stuff. I said, what do you wear? Like, what should I wear to this? And, I just remember being so excited and just happy to be there when they let us into the ice rink. It's so funny because it was a place I used to skate at as like a little kid. And I said, now I'm in here like covering women's hockey. This is awesome. And I walk in there and they were like, oh, this is where all the media people sit. I was like, oh, I'm a media person. Like, this is awesome. Like, this is professional. And then when I got to interview the players, we actually had there was about I think three press conferences that I got to sit in on. And I just remember thinking like, oh my God, I'm in a room with Sarah Nurse, Kelsey Colzer, Kendall Coyne's in here, Jocelyn Lamoureux's in here. This is insane. Like, what the heck? And it's funny because like, if you asked me like a year ago who they were, I was like, who the heck are you talking about? I have no idea what you're saying. So just that's how that whole thing got started. So since I was so eager and always available to like write for whatever they needed covered, they reached back out to me about probably 6 months after that happened. And this was in the middle of COVID. And they were like, we want to offer you an internship. And I was like, are you serious? Like, I haven't been writing for that long and I just got my degree. And they were like, no, we need you. And I was like, okay. And then a few months later, their vice president stepped down. And then they groomed me to take over pretty much like mostly all of what she did. So it was pretty quick. It was like a 2-month summer internship. And then that like October, I was like fully running everything. So full social media, full, I started coming up with like different ideas on like what we could cover. And that's when I started more so not focusing so much on pro. but also focusing on women's like college hockey, because I said I don't see a lot of people talking about that either. And these women are doing incredible things. These coaches are doing incredible things. Like they need to be discussed as well. So I would be just had no idea what I was doing. Never was in my wildest dreams thinking like I would be emailing people asking them to be interviewed and things like that. And it was actually not that difficult as I thought it was going to be. Like once I got into it and just started kind of going for it, I was like, okay, this is not that hard. Like, if this is what people do, this isn't that difficult to just reach out to somebody, ask them for an interview, get them on the phone, and just making sure research was the biggest thing that I learned how to do throughout all of that. Just making sure that I was understanding, okay, what questions do I ask? What are they doing right now that I can kind of pick their brain about, and how can I get them to, talk about it? So I really learned how to talk to people and how to get them, to open up a little bit more, because it's really awkward because obviously this was during COVID. So I can only talk to people either over the phone, over email, or over video call. So it was just really awkward. You just have people popping up on the computer and you're just like, oh shoot, like, okay, like this is great. But I learned a lot. I worked, like I said, it was about 2 years that I worked for them. So I learned a lot in those 2 years just doing all of that. So it was a lot of fun.
I'm just happy to see all these opportunities coming your way. And like you said, women's sports especially needs to be talked about. And I know for somebody who lives on the West Coast, I look at like the PHF off on the other side of the US with envy, because I mean, I do follow it to some degree, but I know 1,000% that it would be so much easier for me if there was a game I could actually physically go to.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that they're not doing enough. It's just society's not doing enough to grow the sport for folks who aren't men.
Yeah.
I mean, we can even look at like soccer. Right now, we're starting the conversation with possibly getting a women's team here in the Bay Area. I mean, there's already 2 down in SoCal, so I'm incredibly jealous. Like, come on. But I've been following the team up in Seattle, but even then I can't follow them as much as I'd like to because they're in Seattle.
Yeah.
So, but it's great when there's folks like yourself who are writing about this stuff.
Yeah.
Because we can research all day trying to find the stuff that we want to get into, but it's much easier, I guess, when folks are covering it and then putting it out there for like, hey, check out this person, check out this league, similar to kind of how like me and Nessa are trying to do with talking about folks like yourself and organizations, or people from underrepresented communities that are doing great things to grow this sport, but aren't, like covered by the NHL or like, a high profile writer like that tends to end up having more of a signal boost.
Yeah.
Versus all these other stuff that, I mean, personally, I want to know way more about. Because, like, the folks that are in, positions where they're going to be covered either way, like, that's cool. Like, I like hearing about that too, but I really want to know about folks who are doing all these great things in communities that are otherwise, not hotspots for the game that we love so much.
It's definitely difficult, and I will say, like, just somebody that didn't know about, the PHF and PWHPA before, and even the CWHL, like I didn't know too much about it, because even in Alaska you're kind of like in no man's land. Like there is no there is no other sports really to watch, and we found it really hard to even watch like just basketball games or like football games or something. It was just not, I wasn't as focused on it, and I just had my son. Like I didn't care about any sports, to be honest. Like it wasn't just like a men or women's thing. It was just, listen, I got a baby right now. Like I don't know what else to do with my life. I just need to focus on him. But once I, got out of Alaska and had regular channels and things like that to watch more sports, I said, okay, like PHF, and I actually had the pleasure of going to a Riveters game and stuff. And it's just very interesting, the landscape of hockey in general and just how the women's leagues are. And I'm just like, there's so much room to grow, but they're getting there. And I just see that sometimes the only issue I see with right now in their growth and like separately is like the PHF is doing their thing and the PWHPA is doing their thing, but they're both kind of similar in the fact that they're not trying to bring the game in other areas. So what I mean by that is like the PWHPA, they have all their showcases and stuff, but they kind of stick to the same spots. Like they don't really go outside of that comfort zone. And I can totally understand why. I mean, you know, obviously you want ticket sales, you want people to support it, and you don't want to go to some place where that might jeopardize like what it looks like. And I just get frustrated because I'm just like, you guys never consider bringing it somewhere else. And I'm like, well, if it's only in Pittsburgh, like how is somebody like myself or other people supposed to get involved if it's way up there? Like that's still kind of far and it's not really that accessible. So it just makes it tough. And then when you see, you know, oh, they're doing a lot of things in Canada, you can't watch it when it's in Canada sometimes. You know, their All-Star game, I know, was just on ESPN Plus, but again, that's a paywall. Like you can't, not everybody can access ESPN Plus, and it's the same thing for the PHF. They moved from Twitch streaming to PHF to the ESPN Plus, and again, a paywall. Like you didn't have to pay for Twitch, and now if you didn't have ESPN Plus, now you got to pay for something else, and that further just puts it behind those walls that makes it harder for people to just, you know, turn on their television or turn on their, you know, whatever they're using, their Fire Stick or whatever to watch sports. I can easily go downstairs right now and turn on women's basketball, like college basketball. I can turn on men's college basketball. But when it comes to even the college hockey, I have to have ESPN Plus for that, or I have to have like the Big Ten network for that. So it's just putting it behind those walls still is what needs to kind of start to crumble a little bit, like on all fronts. Like that makes it hard. Even with NWSL, you have to have Paramount Plus to watch most of the games. So it's just all of these different little platforms. It makes it very difficult for somebody to even get into it. Because if I'm just like, yeah, you should go watch hockey, they'll be like, all right, where? I'm like, all right, well, do you have ESPN Plus? No. Oh, then never mind, you can't watch it. Just don't even worry about it. Just forget it. And then even coverage, like you were saying, it's still kind of hard to find coverage on some of these players. Like when you hear them talking about, like, you know, the announcers or the broadcasters talking about all their stats, you're like, well, where the heck can I find this? Like, where is this at? Like, it's very difficult being a women's sports fan. It really is. Even for a diehard, like it's still so hard because you're just like, where's the game going to be played at again? ESPN Plus, Twitch, like where am I watching this at? Like just, you know, and I found with hockey, if you're not on Twitter, it makes it even more hard to follow it because it seems that's where a lot of stuff is for hockey in general is on Twitter. And if I didn't have Twitter access, I wouldn't know half the stuff that I know. Like at all, because it just, no one talks about it on Instagram or Facebook or anything like that. So that's another thing, is that again, if you're not on Twitter, like how are you really knowing all the ins and outs of the sport and things like that?
Right. What happens if Twitter shuts down? Where do we go?
That's what I've been really concerned about that lately, because I'm just like, I don't really like Twitter, to be honest. I have never been a fan of Twitter, even before all of this craziness, but it's like, that's where I found out about a lot of hockey stuff, and that was only because Women's Hockey Life has a Twitter account, and I had to run it, so I just started seeing all the people that they were following, and then I made my own, and I said, okay, well, I want to follow some of these people, and that's the only reason why I know, like, the little ins and outs of the PHF specifically, because those journalists are on Twitter talking about it. But again, if you don't have Twitter, like, how are you supposed to know, like, some of the behind-the-scenes information that they don't put in articles, but they put it out as a tweet? So it's just hard.
Yeah. I wasn't very active with Twitter until couple of years ago, really, because that's when I started really getting more into hockey. You know, we've talked about it on the podcast before, how Jay and I met was through a Hockey Pride interview that Brock McGillis did.
Nice.
And I found out about that through Curtis Gabriel, who was currently on the Sharks. He was friends with Brock. But I found out through Instagram. And then from there, I decided, like, I had a Twitter account for I don't know how many years that I just never used, right? So then I slowly started migrating over to Twitter, and now I feel like I'm on Twitter way more than I should be. Just trying to keep up with a lot of hockey news for the podcast.
Right.
But yeah, but yeah, you know, it's true. Like you don't get a lot of the news through Instagram that you would through Twitter.
Yeah, and it just stinks because you don't have a lot of platforms that are covering women's sports in the way that ESPN is like posting like breaking news stuff, and other little networks are posting like The Athletic. They're posting stuff constantly, and it's just and that's on all their platforms. But with women's hockey, for some reason, it seems to like live inside of Twitter, and I'm just like, somebody needs to do something about that because we can't be relying on Twitter for the future of women's hockey. I'm just saying, like, we need to do better.
Yeah.
A lot of what you're talking about, it's like that balance between the frustration with the two main pro women's leagues is yeah, they did move towards ESPN, which is like on their side of things, it's a huge move, right? But at the same time, if you are offering it there, but then, before it used to be way more accessible for folks who otherwise like don't have the money or don't particularly want to support ESPN or whatever it is, like now they can't watch the sport. So the trade-off is now you've created this paywall that causes communities that hockey isn't necessarily geared towards in their pursuit. Now they can't keep up with the sport, and then that vicious cycle of like,
who are you growing the sport for, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I see that all the time. Just in general, I'm just like, when you see like, newer programs popping up for kids and stuff, and then I don't see a lot of girls or I don't see a lot of diversity. I'm just like, okay, but are you like trying to get girls to come out, or are you just saying like, hockey, come play? And I'm like, no, are you letting people know that girls can play and stuff? Are you going into different communities, or are you just kind of, hoping for whoever comes? And I'm just like, it's going to take a little bit more effort than that. Like, you can't just, post it out there and then hope that people will just show up. I'm like, hockey is not that type of sport. Like, it's not like soccer. For the general public, people can understand you just kick the ball and you just get it to the goal. Like, little kids don't need to know like the intricacies of the game just yet. But it's like when you think of hockey, like, people are all automatically, that some of the people that I've talked to that don't know anything about hockey, when I've tried to see about different spaces to play and stuff like that, and they're like, hockey? You mean like field hockey? And I'm like, no, just like regular hockey. And they're like, oh, well, we don't have kids that skate. Like, we're not. I'm like, no, wait a minute. I'm just like, wait, pause. Like, no, not skating, just on, like, in your sneakers, but, it's still hockey. And then they're like, oh, no, it's too violent. It's too this. And I'm just like, okay, like, it's really hard trying to convince like the general public, like, hockey's fun, everyone, like, let the kids play. It's just, it does, but like I said, it does take a little bit of effort to get, girls involved and get kids of color involved. Like, it's harder. It's definitely a lot harder, but got to put the effort in.
Do you have a team or a couple of teams you support?
Yes. So for the women's, I like to support the Riveters and the Toronto Six. So when they play each other, it makes it really hard to like, pick a side. I'm just like, yeah. But I definitely like watching the Riveters play and the Toronto Six play. And then for NHL, I am a Red Wings fan. So I've been a Red Wings fan ever since I started playing hockey. We're not doing the greatest right now. When I became a fan, that was when they were on their glory run, and all that.
We can speak. It's not doing so great right now, too.
It's not going too well, and I haven't watched as many games as I want to this year so far. But I'm hoping that like now things have like slowed down with me for a little bit. Like, I can like kind of tune in a little bit more, and I'm also a Flyers fan as well. So those are the teams that I mainly stick with.
Nice.
Okay.
Favorite players?
Ooh, that's hard. So, I guess if we're talking women's hockey, I would definitely say Brianna Decker and Hillary Knight are like up there for me. They're just, they're just like, and Hillary Knight is just the nicest person. I haven't gotten a chance to interview her. I have interviewed Brianna Decker, and she was super cool, like super chill. And I was like, wow, I got to interview Brianna Decker. That's awesome. And then when I went to the PWHPA event, I remember walking past Hillary Knight, And I don't know why I even thought to say this, but she literally was just walking by me, and obviously in her skates, she's got some height. So I was like, oh crap, like that's Hillary Knight. She just like right as she walked by, I was like, great game, and she was like, thanks, and then she just like walked in and walked away, and I was like, why would you say that? I was like, what is wrong with you?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've met a couple of pros just from events, and I hate the way that I just turned into like an idiot.
Yeah, like when
They're
I
like,
met
they're
Blake
just a
Bolden, that's how it
person.
was.
Calm down.
I know, it's so weird. Like I remember I interviewed Blake Bolden the morning, like it was like I think it was like a few days before I sent her an email with just some questions in it. Because she didn't have time to like jump on a call. So I was like, oh yeah, I could just email him right here and you can just respond that way. Either way, you know. She's like, yeah, no problem. And then she was at that event and I was like, oh, I'm probably not gonna get to meet her because she wasn't in the press conferences. So I was like, oh, it's fine. Like I saw her play, like that's good enough, like that's awesome. And she happened to be like out in the crowd. Like it was when the event was like kind of dying down. It had already been over for like about a good 40 minutes. And one of my friends was there and she was like, Blake Bolden's over there. Go talk to her. Like, don't you want to talk to her? And I was like, no, I don't. Like, shut up. And she was like, she was like,
So
I'm gonna get her
no,
over
I'm
here. I
not
was
even
like,
here. Stop
what?
talking to me.
Yeah, I was like, be quiet. Like, don't talk to her. And she was just like, she's like, I'm gonna go talk to her. And she went over there and she was like, hi,
Oh
would
my
you mind if I
god.
would you mind if I get a picture? And she was like, my friend wants a picture too. I was like, oh my god. And like, so I went over to her and I was like, yeah, I'm the one that emailed you the question. She was like, oh, I just emailed you back. Yes. Like, hi, nice to meet you. And I was like, hello. Like, I was like really awkward. Like, hey, how's it going? But yeah, she's super nice too. But you just get so like, I don't know what it is. You just get like worked up, and it's just like awkward. It's like I don't want to talk anymore.
That's funny. I remember I used to be the same. When I was younger, I used to go to a lot of concerts and like meet and greets and be like, oh my god, I've been looking up to this artist for such and such time, and then you meet them, I'm like, oh my god, they're a real person. And then now it's like they're just people. Like it's fine.
Yeah,
Like, like we could be friends if we wanted, you know.
right?
But it's funny, yeah. Your anxiety or whatever gets in the way.
It does.
Okay, so with the holidays coming up, I don't know about you, but Christmas is probably my favorite holiday. It's just people just seem to be in a much better mood around this time of year.
If you avoid them all.
If you avoid them all.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite holiday food?
Not necessarily. Like Christmas was never like in terms of like food, no, like probably I guess ham. Like we always make like a ham or whatever, but that's not too much far fetched from Thanksgiving because I don't eat turkey. So I mean, you know, ham or just getting to eat some stuffing. I don't drink anymore, so I normally like to drink like sparkling apple cider or something like that. For some reason, I don't know why that tastes better to me than alcohol. So I'm just like, I'll just drink apple cider. So having some of that like on Christmas like Eve is pretty nice. So
I think hot chocolate is probably my favorite holiday drink, quote unquote.
I'm all about that ham during Thanksgiving. Like I'll eat some turkey, but the ham's the star for me.
yeah, it's good.
Do you have a favorite holiday movie?
Ooh, it's hard. I have so many, but one of my favorite ones is Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's like my favorite. It's just so fun. I don't know what it is about that movie, but it's like so silly, but it's hilarious at the same time. So I'm a big fan of Sinbad, so I really like his character in the movie. So yeah, that's like definitely a go-to. I haven't even watched it yet, which is surprising, but I have to watch it before.
I think the Grinch movie is probably mine. Right now, my mom, for some reason, wants to have a Grinchmas. She has decorated the house with a bunch of Grinch things. The
That's
tree,
awesome.
they got like stuff hanging off the ceilings. It's so funny. They got so into it this year.
That's hilarious.
Alright, so given the power, would you... This one's kind of hard. What holiday would you create?
Ooh, if I had power to create a holiday,
Yes, you're
that would
president of the U.S.
that would be hard. I mean, I don't even know. I guess I would want like I mean because it's not as like prevalent in like America, I guess. I would want like a hockey holiday. Like everybody knows that this is for hockey because like you have like USA Hockey like really tries and they're like, hey, you know, this is the weekend for hockey events all over. But I'm like, that's if organizations want to do it though. Like they don't have to. So I'm just like, if you could get like whether it's ball hockey, you just play it out in the driveway or, you know, something. Just you get the day off and you have to go play hockey and like just have a good time. That would be definitely my holiday.
National Day of
Let's
Hockey.
get it done.
You're right.
Last TV show you binged or show you're currently watching?
Ooh. Does it have to be a new show I binge? Because I like re-binge shows.
No.
I'm trying to think of one that I saw that was new. I just watched the Santa Clauses on Disney Plus. I just watched that, but I don't think it's over yet. I think there's like 2 more episodes that they have to put out. But another show that I like that came out actually in 2020, I think it was. It was actually a foreign show, but they adapted it to US like to English so that you could watch it. And it's called Home for Christmas. It's on Netflix and it's more of an adult show, but it's hilarious. Like for it to be a foreign show and like obviously like foreign countries have their own sense of humor or whatever. I found it so funny. Like I just thought the show was like kind of relatable in a way, but it was hilarious. Like every episode had you like laughing so hard. It's just an awesome show. They have 2 seasons, so you could just like watch. I'm upset that they didn't renew it, but because it ended on kind of a cliffhanger. But I was like, I rewatch it every year. It's so good. It's hilarious. So I highly recommend Home for Christmas on Netflix.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah.
All right, last one. Order these by your favorites: pancakes, waffles, French toast.
Ooh, definitely French toast. When I was deployed, like French toast, they had, I don't think it was like every day. I think it was like every other day in the dining hall. They had French toast sticks. And I would just eat that.
Oh,
And
I
they were like
remember
the
those.
best things ever. They were the
I
best
remember
things
those.
ever. I was like, yes, like these things are awesome. And then me and my husband actually, like when I came back from my deployment, we went on a weekend trip to Chicago. And I said every day that we were there for like 4 days. Every day that we were there, we had to go to a new breakfast spot so I can test and vote on like who had the best French toast. Like I like anywhere I went, they were like, "What would you like?" I was like, "French toast." Like, let me see what you got. And they were like, "What the heck is that?" Want to try your French toast? So yeah, it definitely did not measure up to the dining hall French toast while I was deployed. So just to put that out there.
That's funny. I think I've done the same, but with waffles. Like, there's just something about waffles that I absolutely love. Like, actually, so here in the States, like, you can eat, when you order a waffle, it's like this big, dense, crispy, fluffy on the inside, whatever. But I lived in Vancouver for a good chunk of the year, and I think their waffles just hit differently because they have the square ones, and they're so light. They're not dense at all. They're just light and crispy, and it's like, I don't know, man, it's so good.
That's awesome. I like waffles too, but I found that like with waffles, like people can really alter the way that a waffle tastes. And I remember like I found this little place. We went on vacation in Charleston, and there was this little like breakfast place right outside of our hotel. And I was like, we gotta eat breakfast there because it's like a local place. And my husband's like, we can eat in the hotel. And I'm just like, no, we're gonna try this place. And like they had like these little cute waffles. And I think that's what like made me want to go in there because their Instagram had like these little waffles and they packed it up in like this little brown box or whatever. And I was like, we're gonna eat those waffles. They were horrible. I don't know who told them that they could make waffles, but they were really bad. I don't know.
Oh no.
It had to be the batter. Like it tasted very eggy and they weren't sweet at all. Like it just tasted like I was eating like a weird bread. I was like, even my son didn't eat them. He was like, he was picking at it. And I said, "Oh, you want to eat?" Like, cause you know he was I think like 3 at the time, so he was really hit or miss with food anyway. But he was like eating. He was like, "This is yucky," and he spit it out. And I was like, "Oh no!" I was like, I ruined breakfast for everyone. Like, this is so bad. It's not good at all.
And your husband was like, "See, I told you we could have ate a
What?
shit ton."
Exactly. He was like, and we missed breakfast because of you, because like they only serve it at those certain times. So yeah, he was not having it that day. I was like, well, fine, that was my bad.
Lesson
The
learned.
Right.
the best waffle that I ate, I had an experience of this is so delicious, and then I got frustrated immediately afterwards because this was in Belgium. It was like dense but not dry, and just like the flavor was just erupting from it. And I just remember I'm like, this is the best waffle I've ever had, and I'm so frustrated that I'm not going to be able to eat one again. Because like I have to go all the way to Belgium to eat this. And then it completely changed my perspective of what a Belgian waffle is. So everything that I eat now that's labeled Belgian waffle, and I'm like, it's abomination. It's away from me.
You're like, I've been there, okay, and this is
I'm like,
not.
I've had a Belgian waffle, okay?
I love waffles. Oh my gosh, and then chicken and waffles on a whole nother level.
Oh, chicken and waffles are good. There's this place in North Carolina called Beasley's, and they make a really good it's like a good piece of like fried chicken on top. I think you can choose whether you want like a breast or like a chicken wing or whatever, and like they just put like two good sized pieces on there with like a couple of slices of waffle, and it's actually pretty good. It's pretty good.
So good. I'm so hungry right now.
As we close out, where can folks find Ball Hockey Bootcamp, and how can they support the organization?
Yeah, so you can find us on Instagram. We're at Ball Hockey Bootcamp. I also have a LinkedIn page. I got to get better with using it, so bear with me on that one. But we have LinkedIn, and we also have a Facebook page. So it's all Ball Hockey Bootcamp across all those platforms. And on those platforms, you can find my webpage. So I update it and let people know like what's going on and things like that. And then also, if you want to support, just share with whoever you think would be interested in doing, the adult tournaments that I have coming up, especially this women's one that I'm trying to do in Nashville. That'll be at the end of February. So if anybody knows anybody that's interested, they can always just reach out to us and let us know, and we'll get you on a team. If you're an individual, you can sign up your team. So just really sharing at this point and getting the word out about what we're doing is just the most important.
Have you considered putting up like a GoFundMe type thing?
I have thought about it, but then I was like, okay, but what would I want people to give me money for? Like, would it just be, to support, buying equipment or things like that, just like having equipment on my own, just ready to give to somebody? But then I was like, I'll just work on just doing the tournaments for right now. And if those become profitable, that's what I plan on using to help pay for gyms and everything like that and paying for equipment. So as of right now, I wouldn't probably do one, but like I said, if I have this tournament and it gives me the success that I'm expecting, then I'll be able to fund what I'm trying to do for the rest of 2023. So I wouldn't even need any other funding. So I'd be pretty set with that.
Nice.
Yes.
So we'll be sure to share lots
you.
so people can go.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much.
Do you have any last minute shout outs you'd like to give?
Not necessarily. Just so far, shout out to all the people that I've bugged so far in pro women's hockey about advice. Shout out to some of those who have given me advice when I've just randomly texted them and asking, like, I need your help. Like, this isn't working out. So shout out to those who have been in the struggle and been trying to do things like this for many years before I even thought about doing something like this. So shout out to all those women who have just reached out their hand and just said, hey, like, you're doing fine, like, it's good, just keep going, like, you just got to keep going with it. So shout out to all those who helped me so far. And yeah, it's been a journey, and we've only been in official business for about maybe 6 months, not even. So we're still in the beginning stages.
You're still a baby organization.
I know.
But you're doing so well.
Thank you.
We've been operating for about 6 months too, I think.
Have we? No way.
I think almost. I think we're like a month or so behind you.
Nice.
Yeah, because we started in like late July.
Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely will be a more dedicated listener from now on. Because once you guys came out to me, I was like, oh, another women's podcast? Yes, let's go.
Well, Jay's non-binary.
Oh, yes, that is correct.
We're just an inclusive, we're queer-oriented podcast, where we try to be.
That's
But also,
awesome.
you know,
Yeah, there's
gotta
not a lot
highlight
of
the
those
people of
out
color
there,
out
which
there.
is still, I'm just like, come on now. Like, we need to, make sure there's more, like, inclusive spaces. I like that, Pride Tape and, they're all
Mhm.
trying to do things as well. And they just came out with that book, that hockey. I can't remember the name of their book, but I have it over there on my shelf. The Hockey is for Everyone book. I think that's what it's called that they came out with.
I have it as well. And I've been
Yes.
so busy that I'm like, I will get around. It's like a kid's book, and I feel like I
Yeah.
have to like dedicate time to read it.
Right.
And I'm just like, like it's right there, and I'm like, I'll get to you. But
It take you like 5 minutes to read. You're
I
like,
know,
it has to be
I
a very
know.
dedicated 5 minutes.
Right. I was just so happy to support them when they came out with that. I was like, oh, automatic buy. I was like, I don't even care if it's 2 pages. Like, I'm buying it to support you and whatever you guys are doing. So yeah, that's awesome.
Same. All right. Well, that is the conclusion of our episode today. We'd like to thank Ashley for coming on and chatting with us. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And with that, I am your host, Jay.
I'm Nessa, and this is Ashley. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for
Take
having
care,
me.
everybody. Thank you. All right.
Bye.
Yeah.